Hey everyone, we want to share with you something a little bit different. We were asked by a local yacht club to do a presentation on our adventures in Haida Gwaii. So we prepared a short highlight reel of our adventures there, and we filmed the evening's events so you could see them. I want to say first a big shout out to the Shilshol Yacht Club for being a very warm and welcoming group of people, and we really enjoyed our evening with them. So now here you go.
I don't need the microphone. You can just hold on to the microphone, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Really?
Thank you, Rosie. I like
So Roger and Club, thank you. Oh, okay.
I'm going to give you the
All
microphone.
right, thank you for inviting us and stuff. It's a great dinner, and thank you very much. So what, I think we've already mentioned probably enough to enough people. What we're going to talk about tonight is a little bit about cruising the Haida Gwaii, which is the old Queen Charlotte Islands. And we basically go to Prince Rupert and turn left. And go about 75 miles offshore to come up to find these islands. So again, we're at Jim and Rosie Addington. We have a 54-foot long-range trawler, Sea Venture. We're not experienced presenters, so excuse us. You know, we're just kind of winging that part of it. So, but we do live and cruise aboard full time, have lots of fun. Been cruising for about 25 years between here and Southeast Alaska. Did summers for years and years and years. I never thought the concept of working 12 months a year didn't never fit in for me very well. So I insisted with my employer that I took 3 months off a year, and they actually bought into it until we retired a few years ago. So what's the good thing is, even though we're doing this presentation, we're not that smart. We have nothing to sell you. No hats, t-shirts, books, memberships, sponsorships, or if you watch YouTube sailing videos, no Patreon subscriptions, nothing. So
You're missing the boat.
Yes, I know. I told you we're not that smart. Yeah, we enjoy sharing boating. That doesn't mean I'm not interested in you becoming a customer. So that's a different topic. All right, Rose, you're up.
I wanted to do a short introduction, which this is a part of, so we're not, and then share with you a short video of our summer trip, and actually a short video of our Haida Gwaii portion of our summer trip. And then we'll share some other key information about Haida Gwaii and provide some Q&A time and wrap this up in like 30 minutes from when he started. All right, so here's a picture of Google Earth. And we kind of started it in Everett because Everett's our home port. And you can kind of see there's Vancouver Island, and as you go up to Prince Rupert, offshore is Queen Charlotte Islands, is what it used to be, and now it's called Haida Gwaii. We could put some place markers in, so Sandspit and Queen Charlotte City are the key places in Haida Gwaii. But anyway, so once you get up to Prince Rupert, just shy of Prince Rupert is where you start your crossing, and it is a 75-mile crossing across Hecate Strait to get to Haida Gwaii. But Haida Gwaii is a pretty remarkable place. It's 150 islands in the island group, and it's about 4,000 square miles. So the question is, why would you want to go there in your boat? For us, part of it is just a challenge of getting there. We thought that would be pretty cool. Just the experience of crossing Hecate Strait and seeing how that turned out. Getting there, not everybody would do it, so we knew it would be somewhat remote. You'd have fewer boaters out in that area. And then the other piece is the park itself. It's called the Gwaii National Park Reserve. It consists of probably the lower third of the island group. And what's kind of interesting about it, it's 138 islands. They have 5 heritage sites on the islands, including a UNESCO World Heritage Site that is down here on the tip. And then the history of the islands is the other piece that really intrigued us. When we started investigating Haida Gwaii, we learned that it was the one island that was not covered during the Ice Age, when Puget Sound was covered with ice about 10,000 years ago. These islands remained ice-free. So that provided an element of history there that you don't find anywhere else in the Pacific Northwest. And finally, just the natural beauty of the islands and the abundant wildlife that's there.
When Rosie mentions these are remote, we spent 7 weeks and saw 4 other cruising boats, and 2 of those were with binoculars. So that's how remote it was. It was, we went a month and never saw another boat. So during the course of our summer trip, we created and posted 11 videos.
What's your channel?
We'll get there. We'll get there. I'll give you that chance. So we posted 3 videos, Cruising Sea Venture. So we took 3 of those videos and condensed it down into about a 16-minute highlight reel of our time in Haida Gwaii, because you don't want to actually listen to us talk for 30 minutes. And so we're going to show that 16-minute video. It includes our 2 adult kids and my son's girlfriend, because they're smart enough to have flown up to Sandspit and joined us for 3 weeks in Haida Gwaii for that part of the trip. So yeah, they picked the best time to come.
Hi, I'm Rosie,
And I'm Jim.
and this is Cruising Sea Venture.
All right, here we are crossing Hecate Strait. No land, maybe I can see a little bit off in that direction in sight. We're about 28 miles away. So we're right about in the middle. All right, I just wanted to briefly explain how we get our weather forecast. So we use Predict Wind extensively. Predict Wind is, you can go to their website. Purple is the least amount of wind. The bars at the bottom. Blue's a little more, green is more, orange is more, and red is even more. If we start the map moving, you'll see the boat move in the middle of the screen. That was our planned crossing.
Hi, we're at the Sandspit Marina. We wanted to show you what it looked like here. It is raining a little bit at the moment, but this is the marina. This has been our home for the last three nights.
3 nights?
Yep. We are cruising towards Skidegate and on in the distance, Queen Charlotte City. We are cruising into the Queen Charlotte City or Village Marina at low tide. Check out the ramps. This is the Queen Charlotte City Marina. Look, this is a really cute part of town. There's the village square or something like that, and some park area. And it takes you around to the visitor center. We are cruising toward Chatham Channel. We're hoping to get there a little bit early so we have time to do a run through with the dinghy before we take the big boat through. So hopefully that'll all work out. Can't say I'm not a little bit nervous, because I am, and we'll just see how it goes. All right, guys, go explore. They're off to check out Skidegate Channel. That is right up ahead to see if it's safe for us to go through it. We'll find out.
Skidegate Channel, which is about 4 miles long and allows you to cross Haida Gwaii in the middle, is a relatively narrow channel. In the pictures you see here, it's close to high tide, so it looks pretty wide. But the area that's more than a few feet deep is only 40 or 50 feet wide, and so you have to carefully follow the course between all the markers. The challenge is that when there's a lot of water, there's a lot of current. And so trying to find the right time can be a challenge. The boats you see passing us in this sped up view of our 4-mile transverse of the channel belong to the fishing lodges and resorts that dot the west and east coast of Haida Gwaii.
We're exploring our anchorage and putting out crab pots. And this is the head of the bay. Look at them. And then it just ends right here. How bizarre. Our anchor is full of kelp. Oh my gosh. Good luck, Daddy.
Yeah.
All right, we're on the west coast. It's swelly. Actually, it's a little more swelly than we anticipated. And we have a 2-hour beamy slog to get where we thought we wanted to go, but we're having second thoughts since we have to turn around and do it again in 2 days, the other direction. So we may just turn around and stay put because these are a little bit bigger than we feel like taking on the beam.
You really can't see it in the video, but the seas were 6 to 8 feet, only about 5 seconds apart between each crest, making for about a 30-degree roll back and forth.
Michelle and I found the entrance to Skidegate Canal at low tide. Canal? No, channel. Skidegate Canal. Channel. Whatever. Words are hard. There's a lot of kelp, so we're raising the engine, trying to get through by use of oar.
There are 2 oars.
Yes, there's a second oar. That second one's right there. And these birds are really annoyed at us. I'd best start paddling before Michelle hits me with her oar. So here we are, idling in the dinghy at 5 knots. And there's a bear on the land over there, right at the end of that little tree. You can see a black blob. Probably looks tiny to you, he looks huge to me. And there's Michelle, she's enamored.
Hi, a bear.
And there's our rangefinder marker thingies. Here's the bottom. 7 feet deep, 4 knots at idle. And there's a happy little bear over there. It's the 4th bear we've seen on this little dinghy ride. So we're just passing the rock that we were using as a current marker. It was, water was barely flowing over the top of it last time we came through in Sea Venture. And now it's, well, the tide's a lot lower. That's how that thing works.
Hayden and I just finished going through Skidegate Channel and we saw, I'll finish this later, he caught a fish.
All right, here they are with their awesome halibut.
Hold him, Hayden.
Well done.
We caught a fish.
Big fish.
Yes.
We're going through Skidegate Channel and you can see the current we're fighting up against those rocks and the marker, which means we are going through this channel very slowly. But we have almost made our way out.
And we are going to the Haida Gwaii or Gwaihanas Cultural Center to do our orientation and see their stuff. So anyway, that's where we're headed.
This is Christie Bay, just east of Queen Charlotte City, where we come and anchored. Tonight we'll head south down the eastern coast of Haida Gwaii. But it's nice and calm. Large bay.
Crabbies! Yeah!
Hayden and Michelle threw the crab ring over the bow and right away pulled up a couple of Dungeness keepers, so we put the crab pots out. And here we are now with like 20 7-inch Dungeness crab that we're cooking tonight and shelling.
A few days ago, Hayden and I went through Skidegate Channel in the dinghy at low tide, and before I could tell you guys what animals we saw, I was interrupted by Hayden catching a halibut, and so we had to stop filming. And so I wanted to tell you guys that when we went through the channel, we saw 5 black bears, 2 on their own and 1 mama with 2 cubs. We saw 2 deer swimming across a wider part of the channel, so we got to watch them crawl up on shore. And then we saw a mom raccoon with 2 little babies. They were scurrying along the rocks right along shore. And then we also saw a bald eagle. We saw a ton of bald eagles, but one in particular that was on the beach eating a fish, which was pretty cool to see. Yeah, so the journey through the channel at low tide was really cool. And then it was topped off with a halibut at the end, which was great now because we have tons of halibut to eat.
We are cruising south from Queen Charlotte City towards the Guayhanas Park, and we have remarkably calm weather today. Approaching Skidans, the first of the Guayhanas heritage sites. Dana Passage.
It's a beautiful sunny day, August 2nd, and we're approaching Echo Bay, which is over there. We'll be there in about a half hour. Off in the distance, I don't know if you can see them, is like some snow-capped peaks. And then right there is a sailboat, the first cruising boat we've seen in quite a while. A little tiny sailboat cruise sailing along.
On our way to the hot springs. All right, the 3 of you. There we go. We are anchored in Island Bay, and it is very close to Burnaby Narrows, which is all right. We're at Burnaby Narrows. Everybody's transferring to flotation devices. And we're gonna go explore the stuff that's here. There are bears on the beach, and the bears have been on the beach since we got here.
I thought we'd take a moment and just talk about crossing Hecate Strait and the challenges you face doing so. So Hecate Strait's the body of water between Haida Gwaii Islands, which used to be known as the Queen Charlotte Islands, and the mainland of British Columbia. It's about 70 miles across. So for a boat of Sea Venture speed, it's 10, 11 hours, something like that, to do that crossing. The challenge you end up with is that for the 70-mile east or west, depending on which way you're going, the currents run north and south there up to about 3 knots, which can be a challenge. And the wind tends to go north or south, and there's often a reasonable amount of wind there. So with the tidal current changing every 6 hours, you're forced to have part of your cruise, or half of it or so, in a wind opposing current situation, which can create steep seas. This is compounded by the fact that it's very shallow. The first, when you're going west to east, the first 20 miles is literally in 25 feet of water. Then it gets up to 50 feet deep for another 25 miles, and only the very last small section does it get up to like 100 feet deep, and that's it. So the vast majority of it is very shallow. You end up with wind opposing current, which adds to the seas and can make somewhat of a difficult crossing for Hecate Strait. But that's some of the challenges of crossing Hecate Strait. And it's one part of what makes Haida Gwaii so great is there's not that many boats out there, and one reason there's not that many boats out there is because you got to cross this Hecate Strait to get there. So for only 70 miles, it can have some real challenges.
Good morning. It is 6 a.m. and we are continuing our morning cruise from Sandspit. We've left around 4 a.m. and now it's finally starting to get a little bit light. So we appreciate the sun starting to come up. At least I really do. All right, we're about 2/3 of the way through Hecate Strait. Let me see if I can. That's what it looks like off the front. But we're getting kind of some beamy seas and getting tossed about a bit. We are not sure if you can get a sense of that at all.
A little more wind than planned, about 18 knots of wind.
Probably about a meter seas. Or maybe.
All right, that's what Dent Rapids looks like 45 minutes late.
We covered the challenges of getting to Haida Gwaii and coming back via Hecate Strait in the video. On the screen is the Guayhanas Heritage or Guayhanas Reserve website. It has all the information that you would need to visit the park. One key reason to visit the park was that it's just a remarkable place of contrast. You have the wild open oceans on the west coast and you have the calm secluded bays on the east coast, and it's not limited to that. There's some rough water on the east coast too, but for the most part it's pretty reasonable. The First Nations clan are the Haida that reside in the park. They lived in the islands for the past 12,000 years. I recall that it was inhabited during the last ice age, so that's just remarkable to me. I just couldn't believe that. At one time it was estimated that there were 20,000 Haida living in the islands, and then by the late 1800s that number was reduced to less than 600 due to smallpox, measles, and tuberculosis that were introduced by outsiders.
You and me.
Yes, exactly. And then they congregated into certain village sites, and then they moved to the kind of central part of the island. The lives of the Haida are interwoven with the environment, and the clues are left behind in the village sites. The 5 heritage sites are the remains of Haida villages that were occupied until the late 1800s. These Haida villages and sacred sites include house pits, midden sites, mortuary poles, and posts and beams of longhouses. None of the sites are where you and I would naturally want to go anchor your boat.
Nope.
They do have some mooring buoys in some of the areas, and oftentimes they recommend that you anchor at another part of the island and hike across to the village sites. The sites are staffed in the summer with a live-in watch person or watchkeeper, and they're Haida, who are mostly college students who themselves are learning and embracing their culture. They welcome you to the sites, and they provide you an educational tour of the site and show you what you're seeing at each individual site. Our hope was to visit all 5 of the sites, but we only managed to visit 2 during the time that we were there because of weather and time constraints. The park does have some specific requirements. You do have to have a permit to enter the park, and a seasonal permit fee is for 2018 $117 per person, Canadian, I think.
Yeah,
Canadian.
it's almost free.
That fee covers the cost of the watchkeepers and the program. It's also required that you attend a 90-minute orientation. So in the video we alluded to, we're going to the cultural center to do our orientation, and then they have a museum there that we weren't allowed to film. Yes?
Can you tell them about the warnings that you made?
We'll get there. We'll get there. It's coming. That's a Coast Guard briefing.
Yeah, I thought that was yours.
Oh, and the other thing I wanted to mention is they limit the number of people in the park, so that's why the permits. And they also limit the number of people to any heritage site to 12 on shore at any one time. So, all right.
Here, Rosie, you get to drive the computer a little bit now.
There you go.
Oh,
You get to talk
okay.
to the microphone.
So when you go over there, there ends up being two cities in the middle. Cities is a really broad term, though, for Haida Gwaii. One is Sandspit, which is right here. The other one is Queen Charlotte City. They're about 10 miles apart. This little tiny hook you can see is the marina in Sandspit. Those are the only two marinas in all of Haida Gwaii in 4,000 square miles. The one in Sandspit's the only one here with any facilities for visiting boaters. So the only fuel, water, or moorage. In Queen, and there is a grocery store, but unfortunately the grocery store is a 2.5 mile walk down the road. And there's no rental car. I mean, there's a rental car at the airport you can get for like $175 a day. But there's only like 5 miles of road on this side and this side. So it's kind of missing the point a little bit. You can't get a ferry across. Queen Charlotte City, on the other hand, does have a marina. I think you saw it. It's the one with showed the 23-foot tidal exchange. Those pictures there. It's got a visitor center. It's got a good grocery store. The downtown is at the head of the dock, and no space for visiting boaters. So you end up anchoring out there, basically. I think maybe some boats might get in there. When we were there, it was full of local boats, and a lot of them were rafted up. So when you saw us going in there, we were actually going in the dinghy. But there is a bay there that you can do. South of Sandspit, and this is about in the middle, there is nothing. There's no roads, no development, no people, nothing for the rest 100 miles south of there. So if you want to, I'll talk briefly now about going to the West Coast. So, because you can go to Haida Gwaii and spend all your time on the West Coast and have a great time. If you want, I mean on the East Coast, if you want to go to the West Coast, you have three choices. You can do that Skidegate Canal that you saw us going through in the boat. Frankly, I'm not sure I would ever do this again. We had 2 to 3 feet of water under the hull, and we draw 6 feet. We're in 6 to 7 knots of current, and we're a 7-knot boat. And when we went through, the current was with us, and you have to do these series of 45-degree turns and to follow this channel. Now, in the video, you saw our dinghy in front of us. That was our dinghy because we'd gone through. We have a navigation system in the dinghy. We made a trail of breadcrumbs, and so our son kind of led us through. It was really interesting. That's okay. In the time we were there, we never did hear of or see any sailboats go through, and we knew one other power boat that went through. So commercial fish boats do this all the time, but there's really 1 feet of water at low tide every day. So if you wait for high tide, there's like 11 knots of current going through. So you have to pick the right spot where there's barely enough water and the least amount of current and that kind of thing. The other option to get to the West Coast is to go all the way around the north end, around the north end of Moresby Island. It's like that's if you want to spend 200 miles in Dixon Entrance. And if you've been to Alaska, you've cut around the corner, just cut across Dixon Entrance for a few hours. But you can go all the way around the northern tip here. The other option is to go around the southern end of the island and go to Cape St. James, which is down here. It's the spot that has the highest average wind. 19 knots is the average year-round wind at Cape St. James, the highest average wind on the west coast of British Columbia. So that's your choices to get to the West Coast. And when you do an orientation and you're at Sandspit, you get to meet with the Coast Guard if you want to go to the West Coast, and they're going to tell you that there's no weather forecasting for the West Coast, only offshore. There's no small craft advisory, storm warning, or gale warning. In fact, Environment Canada just says we have a standing small craft advisory. And think about whether you really want to go there. The calm waters, 1 to 2 meters, 3 to 6 foot chop is about the calmest it tends to get there. And then what Roger was alluding to, your communication, your radio works. The only problem is there's no one to listen to it. The Coast Guard, oh, what'd you do?
Sorry, I lost you.
Oh, yeah. The Coast Guard does not maintain any radio towers that cover the west coast of Haida Gwaii. So they might pick you up, they might not. And they're real clear about that. And they have no facilities, no boats, no rescue crews, nothing on the west coast. and there is no helicopter in Haida Gwaii. So they have boats at Sandspit, a 40-footer. That's the one boat in Haida Gwaii that the Canadian Coast Guard maintains, and it can only go through Skidegate Canal at high tide. So it can't go through at low tide. So they're very clear. You know, you're really on your own on the West Coast. So if all that's not bad enough, this is as detailed as the chart ever gets on the West Coast. It's uncharted a mile offshore inland. No rocks, no depths, no nothing. And the shoreline doesn't actually really go like this. So kind of close, but it makes, this is just a chart that shows part of the East Coast and part of the West Coast. And you can blow this up and there's nothing there. And so that makes for a great challenge and interesting boating if you want to go. It's the only uncharted water in the North Pacific, is the west coast of Haida Gwaii. So it just makes it interesting. Our original theory was we would, because we have our son with us, we'd launch the dinghy, it's got a navigation system. Yeah, that didn't work at all. Because right up to shore, there's like 8-foot chop. And you know, on our boat, you can't launch the dinghy in a 2-foot chop. So that didn't work out, but there's some strategies, but it was a lot of fun on the West Coast. The good thing is you can go to Haida Gwaii without going to the West Coast. You know, there's not many boats that go to Haida Gwaii, and there's even fewer that go to the West Coast. So we know one other boat while we were there, a power boat that came around the south end, and then went through Skidegate Canal, and then said they'd never go do that again. But they did. So you can have a great trip without going to the West Coast, but it's a wild, interesting place to go to.
Tell us about the fishing. I love the way you described
Oh, fishing,
I
okay,
asked
real
him,
quick.
I said, how was the fishing up there? And he said,
Oh, not so good. If you like fishing, I like to fish. You can enlarge that, Rose. Yeah, so if you like fishing, great. The problem is there's not much fishing, there's just catching there. So the limit is 4 salmon per person per day. That usually took like 45 minutes for us to get 8 salmon. And then the halibut was, okay.
Maybe now.
So, and the halibut was about a 50-pound halibut. Once you caught one, okay, now what? Right? Well, so we do have a good-sized chest freezer on board, but so it's a great place to catch fish. And you saw the crabbing was like this every day if you wanted.
The crabbing was amazing.
You know, but you can catch 20 big Dungeness a day, but then you got to spend half your day cleaning and taking care of and processing crab.
Jewel, that's what else we did.
Of which we still have some. All right, you're up. Oh, here.
Actually, I'm up because I'm done. I mean, we're done. I just wanted to say, actually, that I have to get my papers so I get it right. I don't want to get it wrong. If you want to challenge yourself, if you want to have a great adventure, if you want to be on your own and be independent and see some of the most unspoiled wilderness in North America, Haida Gwaii is really the place for you. It's amazing. It was absolutely beautiful. In all fairness, we had awesome weather when we were there. It was just a home run all the way around. So it was a really great time. We do, as Jim alluded to, have a lot of videos that we've, not a lot, like 20 some, that we posted. It's on YouTube. You can find us at Cruising Sea Venture. And if you want to reach out and have any questions or something comes up or you're thinking about going and want some ideas or anything, you can reach us at cruisingseaventure@gmail. So we're around. We're just boaters who like to talk about boating.
That's all we got. Hey, we hope you enjoyed that presentation that we did. We had a lot of fun doing it. Again, thank you to the Shoal Bay Yacht Club. Sorry about the video quality. You know, we're good at boating, but we're still learning a lot about the whole video thing. But hope you enjoyed that. So, hey, coming up next, I think we're going to do another tech talk based on YouTube questions and comments and requests. It's going to be a detailed engine room tour of Sea Venture. We've had a variety of people asking us to do that. So we're going to do that. If you're interested in the refit, that's continuing along. The superstructure is still being built up in Port Townsend. Sea Venture goes back to Port Townsend and out of the water April 2nd. So by the middle of April, the project and the refit should be completed, just in time to head into the North Pacific in late May, early June. And more on those plans later. So for now, wishing you no wind and flat seas. See you later, everybody.